we did parabolas yesterday. Okay? So it works basically the same as what we did yesterday. If I'm looking for my vertex, my x is going to be the opposite of what's here. So this would be 3, comma, and then my y is what's outside, 2. Okay? Then for number 2, it works the same way. My vertex is opposite of this, so that's positive 4, comma, negative 5. Okay. Number 3, this would be a negative 2, positive 4. And then 4, we're doing the opposite here, so positive 1, negative 5. Okay, and then this one's different. What is it missing here in number 5?
A y.
A y. So what would that y be then?
0.
0. Very good. And then here, it's missing what value? X. So x would be 0, y would be negative 2. Very good. Okay, so yesterday our parent function was x squared. And so the parent function just came up and made a u. This time our parent function is y equals the absolute value of x. Okay? And then if it's flipped, what happened yesterday to make it flip? What? It became a negative. So the same thing is going to happen today. Okay, so let's look at a few of those. So vertical shifts. Yesterday, did that mean we went up and down or side to side? Up and down. So looking at number 1, and tell us we're going to go up 3. So is that my x or my y?
Y.
My y. So my vertex from the original equation would change from 0, comma 3. Originally it was 0, 0. We went up 3, so it changes our y by positive 3. So if we were going to write our equation, it would look like y equals the absolute value of x. Did we change x at all? No, so it's just the absolute value of x. And then would it be plus 3 or minus 3? Plus 3. Okay? Then if I want to graph that, I'm going to put a point at my vertex, 0, 3. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, and putting a point. And what shape should I make this time? A V. And it is going up because it's positive, so I'll just make it go straight out like that. That's why it's so important to distinguish between the curved view and then the actual V. Alright, let's look at another vertical shift. So this vertical shift, we're going down 4. So is that a positive or negative 4? A negative 4. And that's changing my x or my y? My y. So in my vertex, x stays the same at 0, and y is negative 4. Yes?
How do you know if like a vertex is 0 if the x is
Okay. If it's going up or down, the vertical shifts are always my y value. So that's the only thing that changes. Because we know vertical, my y-axis is vertical. It goes up and down. So anytime it's up and down, my y changes, my x stays the same. If we're going side to side, my x would change, but my y would stay 0. Does that make sense? Yes. Yes. Okay. So now, when we write our equation, our x did not change, so we get y equals the absolute value of x, and then it would be minus 4. So when we graph that, we're going to go from the center, we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, put a point, And is it facing up or down? Up. Okay, because this didn't change, it's still positive, so it's going up. Okay, let's try a few that are flipped this time. So flipped changes what? Okay, it changes the sign in front of the absolute value. So it's going to make it a negative. Then if we go down 2, that's a negative 2. Okay, so my vertex, this is still y, so it's going to be 0, comma, negative 2. Then when I write my equation, I'm going to get y equals, and in front of that absolute value, since it's flipped, we want to do negative, and then an absolute value of x minus 2. Okay? So when we graph this, we're graphing our vertex first. 0, negative 2, we're going down 2, putting a point, and which way should my v face? Down. Okay. Any questions so far? Yeah. It's not a great V, but it's a V. Okay, now in number 5, this one is flipped and up 3. So again, we're going to have a negative in front. We're going up 3, so that's a positive 3. So when I do my vertex, it's going to be 0, 3. Then when I write my equation, that's going to give me y equals, since it's flipped, we want that negative outside, absolute value of x plus 3. So to graph that, I'm going to graph my vertex, which is 0, 3. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3. And then since it's flipped, it's facing down, and so I'm going to draw my V down. Okay, how do y'all feel about that? Good? Okay, well then let's try some writing equations from the graph. So in number 7, they give us the graph. What is the first thing we probably want to find here? Do y'all know?
The y. No, if it's like up or down, it's like flip.
Okay. We're looking to see is it flipped. It's not flipped because it's facing up. Then we also want to see where it moved. Originally, it was at the origin. It moved where? Down. It moved down 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So it went down 4, which is actually what? Is that a positive or a negative 4? A negative 4. So when I write my equation, I get y equals, did my x value change? No. So it's going to be the absolute value of x, and then it's going to be minus 4 because it moved down 4. Okay. Let's look at 9. What's different about 9? What happened to the graph there? It's upside down. It flipped. So that means if it flipped, it's going to be negative. And where from the origin did the vertex move? It went up 3, right? So up 3 is positive. So when we write our equation, that's going to give us y equals, since it's flipped, we have to have a negative absolute value of x. It went up 3, so that's a positive 3. Okay, so remember on those, our original spot is always at the origin, and all you're going to do is count either up or down to figure out where the graph moved. Okay, now the next thing that I want to talk about is horizontal shifts. Okay, so in number 10, it tells me that this graph is going to move left 1. Remember that horizontal is my x value. So only x is changing here. So if I move left 1, that's actually a negative 1. So my vertex would change to -1, 0. Now, where is x located in that equation? In the absolute value. So that's going to give me y equals absolute value of x. And if it's -1, what sign goes there? A positive. So +1. And then since it's 0, we don't have to write anything out here. We don't have to write +0. Now, to graph that, we're going to graph our vertex, which is -1, 0. So from here, to go -1, I'd have to go left 1, put my point. It didn't flip, so it's still facing up. Okay, let's look at another one of those. So in number 11, it tells me that it is moving right 2. So my original one moves right 2. That's a +2. So my vertex would be 2, 0. Remember, horizontal is my x value. Now, when I write my equation, my x goes in the absolute value. So it would be y equals absolute value of x, and then I'd have to put, would it be minus or +2? Minus 2. And then I don't have to put +0. So up here, what it actually tells you is all we're doing. So from the center, it says we go right 2. So I'm going to go to the right 1, 2, put my point. It is still facing up, so I'm going to draw my V up. Okay. Now, let's look at some that are flipped. So, in 13, this one is flipped and it goes left 4. So flipped means we're going to have a negative at the beginning of the equation. And left 4 is a -4. So again, if we're going left, that's my x. So my vertex would be -4, 0. When I write my equation, I'm going to have y equals, since it is flipped, we put negative in front of our absolute value. So it'd be x, and since it's -4, it'd be x plus 4. Yes. Right. It's the same thing as yesterday when we had parentheses. The opposite goes in. The same with absolute value. The opposite would go in our absolute value. So when I graph this, what I want to do is I want to graph my vertex. So -4, 0. I'm going to go left 1, 2, 3, 4. It told me it was flipped, so which way should the V be facing?
Down.
Down. Okay, let's look at one more of those. So let's do 14. 14 is flipped and right 1, so that means we're going to have a negative in front of our absolute value. Right 1 would be a +1. So my vertex changed from 0, 0 to 1, 0. My equation when I write it is going to be y equals negative, and then I'm going to put, because of the flipped, the starting absolute value, and it would be x minus 1. Now to graph that, you do exactly what it tells you. Which way did it tell us to go in 14? It told us to go to the right. So I'm going to go right 1, put my point. Then I just look, it tells me it's flipped, so it's going to be facing down. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, let's let's try to write an equation from the graph. So looking at 16, what I want to do, is it facing up or down? Up. So I know it's going to be y equals a positive. Did it move right or left?
Right.
It went right 1. So that's positive. So when I do my equation, it's going to be x minus 1. Then did I have to add anything at the end? Did it move up or down? No. So that would be my equation. What? Minus 1. Because this is positive. You always do the opposite. Alright? Then in 18, is this one flipped?
Yes.
Yes. So when I write my equation, I'm going to get y equals a negative. Then I put my starting absolute value, and it's going to be x. Now, which way did this graph move?
Right.
To the right, 2. So that means we would do negative 2, or minus 2. Okay, so are we ready to try both horizontal and vertical shifts together?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at number 1. It tells me that I'm going right 1 and up 3. So right 1 is a positive 1, up 3 is a positive 3. So my vertex would be just that, those exact numbers. So my vertex is 1, 3. Okay. Now I'm plugging into this equation up here. So I'm going to get y equals absolute value x minus 1 plus 3. So all I did was plug 1 in for h, 3 in for k. Now to graph this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph the vertex. So 1, 3 means I go right 1, up 3. If you cannot remember to go right or left or up or down, read exactly what the problem tells you, because it tells you to go right 1, up 3. Now, is my V facing up or down here?
Up.
Up. Okay, let's look at another one of those. So in number 2, it tells me I'm going to go left 2 and down 3. So left 2 would be a negative 2. Down 3 would be a negative 3. So my vertex is negative 2, negative 3. Then when I write my equation, I'm plugging negative 2 in for h, negative 3 in for k. So that's going to be y equals absolute value of x plus 2, close your absolute value, minus 3. Now to graph this, we're going to graph our vertex, which is left 2, down 3. So I'm going left 2, down 3, and my absolute value graph will be facing up. Okay. Any questions so far?
Can I get my worksheet as the practice?
In just a minute. Okay, let's try a few with flipped. Okay, so in number 4, this one is flipped, left 3, and down 2. So flipped means that my equation at the very beginning is going to be negative. We go left 3, which is a negative 3, and down 2, which is a negative 2. Okay, so my vertex is strictly these numbers, which is negative 3, negative 2. Then when I write my equation, I'm going to get y equals, and at the very beginning of the equation I need negative, then I'm going to do the absolute value of x plus 3, close your absolute value, minus 2. then to graph, you do exactly what they tell you. So you go left 3, down 2. So I'm going to go left 1, 2, 3, down 2. It is flipped, which means it's facing down. Okay, and let's try one more of those. So number 5, again, this one tells me that it's flipped, so I'm going to have to make my equation negative. Then it tells me I go right 2, so that's a positive 2, and down 1, which is a negative 1. So my vertex is going to be 2, comma, negative 1. My equation is going to be y equals, since it's flipped, I need a negative. Then I'm going to put absolute value of x minus 2, close your absolute value, minus 1. And then graphing, you're just going to do what it tells you. It tells you to go right 2, down 1. So I go right 2, down 1, put my point. Then it tells me it's flipped, so that means it's facing down. Okay, let's look at analyzing. We did this yesterday, and this is probably the easiest thing that you're going to see. You're just telling what happened to it. So looking at number 1, did this one move up or down? Number 1, did it move up or down? Nobody knows? Down how many? Down 7. Okay. What about number 2? Up or down? Up 3. Did it move right or left? Okay. Number 3, what happened there, Haley? In number 3, what happened?
It's flipped.
Mm-hmm.
There is no x value, and it's positive 2.
So does that mean it went up or
So
down
up.
on our right or left?
Up 2.
Up 2. Very good. Brianna, what about 4? What happened there? Okay. Is 4 an x or a y value? It's an x. So is x up and down or right or left? Okay. So since right now it's minus in the parentheses or the absolute value, what does it mean it actually is? Say positive 4, so that means we would go right 4. Okay. Bryant, what about number 5? What happens there? Goes left 8, because remember it's opposite. Okay. Hope, what about 6? It's flipped, and then remember this is my x value, so it's either going right or left. Since this is minus, we'd be going right 5. Okay, Mackenzie, what about number 7? What happens there? Up 9, left 2? Wouldn't it be right 2? Because it's the opposite. You guys, you've got to remember that if it's in the absolute value, it's opposite of what it looks like. So here, this looks like a positive 4. So we would think we'd be going right 4, but it's actually the opposite, and we'd be going left 4. It's also flipped, and it's going down 1. So if you made that mistake, you were working ahead of me, you need to go back and make sure you fix all of those to be opposite. Okay? Yes.
Can I look at the red thing?
In just a moment, yes. Okay, last thing. We want to make sure we can graph given the equation. Okay, so looking at number 10,
Negative 1, 0.
okay, it would be negative 1, 0 is my vertex. So I would graph, go to negative 1 on the x-axis, put a dot. Is it facing up or down?
Up.
Up, because it's positive. Okay. Number 11, do I have an x or a y value there? A y. So that means my vertex is going to be 0, comma, negative 4. So on the y-axis, I go to negative 4. I put a dot, and it would be facing up because this is positive. Okay, what about 12? Is my x or y given? X. So is that a positive or a negative 2?
I'll be fine.
Positive 2, comma 0. Okay, so on the x-axis, I'm going to the right 2. And is it going to be facing up or down? Down because of the negative right here. Alright, and let's try 14. Okay, does it give me an x or a y?
Both.
It gives you both. Okay, so my x right here, would that be a positive 1 or negative 1?
Positive 1, 4.
Positive 1, positive 4. So my vertex, I would go right 1, up 4.
Going down.
And it's facing down because of the negative. Very good.